Welcome to Construct Tech TV, and I'm Peggy Smedley. Now, the city of Orlando has had various nicknames throughout its history, including the City Phenomenal and the City of Light. Now, its history dates back to 1838 and the Seminole Wars. The U.S. Army built Fort Gatland south of present-day Orlando. By 1840, a small community had grown around this fort, and it was later incorporated in 1875. Now, the first highway to be built was in Central Florida, was the Colonial Drive, and it was originally paved all in brick. So much has been transformed since those early days. Orlando has evolved from the hub of citrus in the 19th century to a mecca of tourism in the 20th century. This is in part due to Walt Disney's massive theme park, which many of us already know encompasses just over 20,000 acres, which incidentally is roughly the same size as San Francisco. Currently, Orlando is known as the City Beautiful, and the City Beautiful has been determined to become a lot smarter. As a result, it was awarded the Smart Cities Council Smart Cities Readiness Challenge Grant, as well as the U.S. Department of Transportation's designation of Automated Vehicle Proving Grounds pilot. Now, quite a step up from the paved brick roads of the past. So the City Beautiful, that's getting smarter, is also a compassionate city. In fact, one of its key priorities is to ensure that all of the needs of all of its citizens are met. In terms of smarts, this means increased mobility options and clean, affordable energy. So for a population of roughly 277,000, according to the 2016 U.S. Department Census Bureau statistics, it all begins with energy information that is all tied together. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to stick around for the rest of the show, where I'll be talking with some top city insiders to learn more about what it takes to make the smart city of Orlando tick. So that's A City Connected, Orlando. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, transportation incidents account for about 40% of the workplace fatalities in just 2016. Now think about that. That's 40%. If you ask me, something must be done to change all this. So this is why I'm so pleased to have a returning guest with me on the program to talk about driver and fleet safety. Carl Heinlein is the Senior Safety Consultant at the American Contractors Insurance Group and the Director at Large for the American Society of Safety Engineers. Carl, welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Great to be back here again.
So, Carl, we have a lot to talk about. Let's really dive into this problem of fleet and safety. And what's a typical construction company, what do they really need to do when we think about this?
Great question. And really what we've found out there in the construction industry is that most companies are not doing much at all.
Now that's scary when you say that, right?
Yes. So typically what we're seeing is most construction companies may be checking their driver's motor vehicle record, and that's about it. They're not doing much training. They're not putting a lot of resources into it. They're doing a great job focusing on the compliance areas, but when it comes to the fleet and the driver, they'll probably admit that they're probably not putting a lot of time and effort into it.
So is the idea that we need to have more training in the classroom? Do we need to have more training out in the field? What is it exactly we're talking about?
Well, I think that it's a combination of both. So if you would take a look at professional driving organizations, UPS, FedEx, United Postal Service, they treat them as professional drivers. In construction, they're construction workers, and we don't spend the time on not only training them in the classroom, but actually in the seat of the vehicle that they're going to drive. It's just an opportunity for us to take a real close look at how we can improve on that. As you said in the statistics, it's a very high exposure, and really it's a 24/7 exposure as well.
So when we look at safety right now, it's something that we have to think about all the time. Are there certain programs that are set out there that we can do, or is it something right now that we have to constantly remind companies that, look, this is a reinforcement. It's not a one-time, let's train them now and get them out in the field and they're done, one and done. But we're really talking about it's constant reinforcement because we're talking about heavy equipment in the field, and this is why we have so many accidents.
Sure. It is really the comprehensive fleet risk management, the driver safety program is everything that starts with when someone comes on board to an organization to making sure we're assigning them the proper vehicle and then providing them the training for that vehicle. May it be a heavy vehicle or a pickup truck, to make sure we're properly coordinating that with each other so we're not exposing them. You know, with driving and texting, with elderly drivers, fatigue, with opioid usage, there's so many things that are impacting the driver safety that we still have a long way to go.
So are we really talking about that the companies aren't doing enough, or is it the individual that gets distracted now? Because we talk about the technology now on this equipment that we have is distracting, you just talked about, but you also kind of threw in there the drug use, the opiate use, tired, they're being fatigued. There's a lot of combination that's all playing a role in this. So I'm kind of not sure what really is the problem. Are we blaming it on the companies? Are we blaming it on the individual? And how do you actually crack down on which source right now is to blame here for what's happening? Because at the end of the day, an insurance company comes in and they've got to look and say, is it the company or is it the individual right now?
Good. Well, you know, anyone that works for an organization, as a company, we have to make sure that we're providing them a safe workplace. So as organizations, we need to take a very close look at, you know, when we're bringing them on board, what are we educating them with? How are we improving their opportunity to succeed? And hopefully, as we go through these processes, the benefit also goes to when they're driving at home and off the job as well. Because really this is a 24/7 exposure. With the texting and driving, it's a societal issue. So I think that as construction companies, we can really start to be the base of opportunities to succeed in the future.
So is there something we have to do? Do we start having to have, you know, we talk about when we get, everybody has to have a test, right? We have a driver's test. Should there be frequent testing of these drivers, of these machines, what they're doing out in their fleets, to make sure they're constantly doing the right things? Because as the equipment changes, as we talk about, the requirements change. Should we be holding behavior requirements like testing to make sure people are staying up to date and doing the right things to be refreshed on the job?
That is a fantastic question, and I will just throw it into a scenario. If we're dealing with a fall protection issue or an excavation issue or something like that, why wouldn't we do the same with our driver safety? So we're doing annual training and ongoing training and toolbox talks and job stop meetings, things of that nature, where, you know, should we be taking a look at the same thing for our drivers? Why wouldn't we try to figure out how we can reinforce better driving habits? You know, it's winter out right now. How can we not take a look at, you know, safe driving in winter conditions, or if it was spring, things of that nature. So I would always tell construction firms to take a look at it like your other hazards within the job. Are we enforcing good risk mitigation, good training opportunities, good you know, education abilities to them to learn and do better?
So when we look at all this kind of equipment on the job site, we look at our fleets, we're saying, are we talking about getting to and from a job site, or are we talking about the equipment on the job site? When we reference our fleets, what's the difference so that companies understand when we're referencing this? Because that's an interesting thing, how we operate our equipment, our fleets. That's the thing we have to think about, because it's really twofold, right?
Absolutely. You know, you have kind of the inside the job site, the internal work zone, which is, you know, typically the public wouldn't be in there, but you would have other equipment, other contractors, vendors, suppliers moving in and around your employees and subcontractor employees. And then when you get out to the public highways, it's a whole nother thing. You have truckers, school buses, grandmas, grandmothers, grandpas, things of that nature that are driving in and around you. So, you know, you have the internal and you have the public.
Carl, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, well, I want to appreciate Carl for joining us. This is Carl Heinlein. He is the safety consultant at the American Contractors Insurance Group and the director at large for the American Society of Safety Engineers. And that's your Safety Zone for today. Thanks for joining us on Construct Tech TV. Sustainability is a central component to many smart city strategies, and this is certainly the case in the city of Orlando. My next guest today is an eco-entrepreneur, urban farmer, and a sustainability professional who develops partnerships, policies, and programs. He does this all while being the senior advisor to Orlando's Mayor Buddy Dyer. Please welcome Chris Castro, Director of Sustainability at the City of Orlando. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peggy.
So, Chris, let's begin by talking about how do you define smart cities, because I think that's what's really interesting. I would like to hear you define it for the City of Orlando.
Sure. First, I'd like to talk about a little bit of the unique challenges that Orlando faces, and some of my colleagues will mention this throughout the interview, but Orlando is the fastest growing region in the entire country. Out of the top 30 MSAs, we are rising year over year. And in addition, we've had 68 million visitors come to our city last year alone. So we face some really unique challenges from a long-term sustainability standpoint. And as a result, our mayor, Buddy Dyer, launched an effort 10 years ago called GreenWorks Orlando. And the whole effort was, as we continue to grow as a globally competitive city in the 21st century, how can we ensure that we are enhancing quality of life and the health and well-being for those who live here? How do we drive a robust and a diverse economy? And of course, find ways to protect natural resources and the environment for current and future generations. And so when we start to look at smart cities, it's really this nexus between sustainability and what we've been doing the last decade and the onset of incorporating advanced technologies that can make our city more intelligent, more interconnected, and more efficient as a community.
And when you look at that, what has made you look at the City of Orlando unique compared to those other cities when you think about them out there right now? Because there are a lot of cities who are trying to look at themselves to be smart and they want to be innovative and look at technology. Some of them have succeeded, some have struggled and found that they've made some huge investments and they've not gone over very well. But it seems like you guys are finding your way, you're finding your groove and making some of this work. And maybe it's because you have a captain at the helm who really, is saying we get it, and he's leading the charge and you're all following his say in all of this. Maybe you tell me.
I will say certainly Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer has been the tip of the spear behind this whole effort, and realizing that we need to continue to put Orlando on the map as a competitive city. But it's also the culture. We have a really strong culture of creativity and innovation and technology in the city of Orlando. We're the world's leader of modeling and simulation. We have a robust community engagement around technology and engaging our residents and students in this. And of course, we're the home of the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, also known as Epcot, right, that was developed here in the 1980s. So one thing we're seeing is that the culture is very much embracing, and what our role in the city has been is how can we enhance city services to really embrace technology and sustainability and make it part of the DNA of our city moving forward. So looking at things like public safety and transportation, built environment, energy and utilities, water resources, waste management, and even the digital landscape, right, telecommunications that allows the interconnectedness of all of these different systems.
Talk about the built environment. So when we talk about construction, because that's important, because I think when we talk about the future and landscapes of things, that becomes so important because you can't have all these connected things without first building it. And I think we get lost in that when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about all these sensors. You have to build them first. You've got to put them into the roads to make all these connected autonomous cars. And I think the street lights and that. And I think sometimes we don't really fully talk about that enough without really talking about what a built environment really means in some ways, and designing it and building it and bringing it all to fruition.
So the construction industry is such a critical part of realizing a smart city for really any community. And it's really about, essentially laying down the infrastructure that's needed for us to be smart. We often talk about the fiber that's laid that allows for the intelligent transportation system and our dynamic signals for us to have efficient transportation. We also utilize that same type of fiber and infrastructure for citywide surveillance and ensuring public safety and predictive analysis. And then down to the actual buildings, these facilities that make up the built environment. house us every single day, right? We live and we work indoors in these facilities more than 80, sometimes 90% of our entire days. And so what these facilities are becoming are these beacons for these technologies. The true Internet of Things is essentially the buildings being the main anchor for these, where the fiber is connected, where we have various different sensors from building automation and controls to smart lighting to HVAC and a number of other technologies that can make our buildings more efficient at the end of the day.
Do you think perhaps maybe we got lost in what the Internet of Things are because we talk about so many little things in our lives being connected? We don't realize the importance of how dramatic the Internet of Things are to so many other things in our lives that are much bigger than what our smartphone is, connecting an app to just like, saying, oh boy, how much weight can I lose today? Or, these little things, or,
Sure.
whoa, Bobby and Sue have a really fun device that they're playing with at home. I mean, there's so many more things.
Yeah.
Or we talk about Alexa, and I get that, but Alexa's bringing to a lot of AI, but there's much bigger things that I think that are behind all this Internet of Things that we talk about.
Yeah, and I often envision all of those various things connected by this digital landscape to allow for us to create connectivity, right? And so it's not an individual technology. IoT is about the vast majority, the aggregation of all of these individual nodes and sensor points that are capturing data in real time, that are communicating that data across the landscape for us to analyze it through analytics and computer modeling, and then take that information and become more intelligent as a city. And for us, it's really about improving the efficiency of a city that minimizes on expenses that taxpayers have to operate our city, to make ourselves more efficient and welcoming to business and to those who want to live, work, learn, and play here.
What about this? The big thing that we talk about is incentivizing our next generation to understand the importance of what construction can bring, because we're now going to have a shortfall of workers to understand construction. So it might be great we have this Internet of Things or this built environment, but if we don't understand and help them understand, they have to be the next creators of this innovation, or we're not going to be able to build anything because we don't have the workers, just like we had the shortage of manufacturers. We're going to have a shortfall here. How do we get that generation to understand we need their creativity to be able to build these things that you're talking about in this smart world, in this connected transportation, in this sustainability? None of this is going to matter if we can't get the workers to want to be in construction to put all these things together, to be in your city.
You're absolutely right. And it even starts as early as early childhood education and K through 12. Right. And here in the city of Orlando, our public school system, Orange County Public Schools, has instituted a goal to go completely digital by 2020. So imagine every single classroom, every student now embracing digital technologies, getting more affluent with using computers and using the internet and using emails, and then evolve into higher education, where I've personally been working on creating new types of associates of science degrees and new types of certifications that are really focused on technical and vocational training. So one example with Valencia College is a degree called Energy Management and Controls Technology, and it's really focused on the construction industry in the built environment and equipping current and future generations to better understand how to use sophisticated controls and the emergence of all of these technologies within the built environment, including fire safety systems, security systems, obviously the energy and water efficiency systems as well.
Where do you see the city of Orlando as a smart city going forward? How do you see it in the next few years, next 5 years? Put us in that landscape, if you will.
Yeah, we currently have incredible momentum as it relates to our smart cities and sustainability initiatives. And I think that Orlando is positioning ourselves to truly live up to that name of being the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. We're essentially positioning ourselves to embrace the eyeballs who come here to Orlando, to test out new types of technologies in a wide variety of different sectors and work with partners to really embrace the revolution that we're in, attracting business development in a wide variety of areas, including autonomous and connected vehicles. That's one area that we're really beginning to excel in, and we've recently been designated as a proving ground test bed for these types of vehicles. And also in the renewable energy space, we're beginning to accelerate rapidly thanks to the work that we and our partners at OUC are doing, the Orlando Utilities Commission, to get us to 100% renewables for city operations by 2030 and 100% renewables citywide by mid-century. So there's a really very exciting momentum that's happening here in Orlando, and the culture is really starting to embrace the idea of being kind of that future 21st century competitive city that really is focused on technology and sustainability at the core.
Well, I have to tell you, Chris, it's very exciting to hear all the things we've heard today from the City of Orlando. So I want to thank you, Chris Castro, the Director of Sustainability at the City of Orlando. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peggy. Pleasure.
All right, well, that's someone you should know, and there you have it. There's so much exciting things going on at the City of Orlando. Orlando is becoming a hub for innovation. On this segment, I'm so thrilled to be joined by the Director of Smart Cities at the City of Orlando. Charles Ramdot has experience in project and construction management, transportation engineering, parking systems management, and intelligent transportation systems. He is a consulting engineer who focuses on large infrastructure projects and leads the Smart City team at the City of Orlando. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Becky.
So, Charles, let's talk about how Orlando has evolved over as a smart city in the past year or so, what you guys have really done. Actually, I should say the past several years, you guys have really evolved and tried to do a whole lot of things. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so over the last 3 years, we have been rebranding many of the things that we've been doing separately and adding things to them to have them all fall under the umbrella of a smart city. We have been modeling our GreenWorks Orlando program, which is a decades-old program that focuses on sustainability. So that program has engaged the stakeholders, and it has allowed us to share challenges with stakeholders and to understand their expectations. So now we, on our smart city journey, are doing the same thing for a wide range of different city areas, such as public works, with which you spoke, about which you spoke with Rick Howard before. Solid waste, he covered quite well there. We're covering transportation comprehensively. We're covering green buildings, energy, public safety, and a big one, which is the foundation of smart cities, is information communications technology.
When you look at all these areas that you've had to put together, it takes a lot. I always comment that it takes a village to make all these things kind of work, a lot of collaboration. How are you guys doing that in the City of Orlando to make all that work when you talk about transportation, buildings, and all the sustainability that you're putting it together? There's a lot that has to happen. How have you been able to do that?
Actually, we have very sharp people who are already managing these areas. So what we're trying to do as a smart city is to bring emerging technologies on a sustainable and affordable basis to managing all of these areas. So we already have smart people. We're just bringing another dimension to what they're already doing to essentially make it more efficient and to make sure that we're on the leading edge of how we deliver services and how we respond to our stakeholders.
Well, think about that, because as you described, many things have had to change, but there's also had to be a lot of hurdles to make all this happen. Let's talk about that, because it's never easy to make something successful happen.
So through the best practices that we continue to learn, we're actually doing this on a continuing basis with a lot of our staff through various parts of the city who are in professional organizations. We learn about the emerging trends. We also follow groups such as the Smart Cities Council, Smart Cities Connect, and the National Science Foundation, many others, and we stay abreast of the emerging trends, and we study the lessons that are learned by many other cities, not just in the US, but in Europe and Asia as well.
How does a city of your size, when you look at your about what 277,000 citizens, I would say, residents of your size, how do you actually work to make all of this come together? Do you stand out compared to other cities? I would ask that question.
I'm glad you said that, because we are a city of about 277,000, and in an urban area that's just under 3 million in population, and an urban area that gets over 68 million visitors per year. So we are punching above our weight class. But we have seasoned professionals who've been doing this for a long time, and we know what our major challenges are. We are focusing not on the full breadth of smart cities right now, which will take us 20 to 30 years to accomplish, but we're looking at our major challenges. What are our vulnerabilities and so on? How do we address those first off? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to do it very well. We think we're doing it very well. And we're also trying to make sure we do a good job of including the underserved and the vulnerable.
When you look at all of that, when you say that, are these, when one of the things that I think that you guys talk a lot about is saying that you want to be a community and you care for the community, in that being able to serve them not only as the citizens that you have there, but your businesses, and that being one that cares. And it takes a lot of work to do that. So what kind of tools do you want to say that you're using? Is there specific technologies that you're doing? Is it saying you want to incorporate the businesses that you're doing with their types of technologies? What does it require in order to accomplish that?
We have a comprehensive civic and stakeholder engagement program through our community affairs, our communications staff at the city, where we reach every demographic through the means that would be the means that they would be using. For example, social media for the appropriate demographics. We use emails and internet outreach for other demographics. We have ongoing community meetings with different elements of our community, the businesses, the downtown Orlando businesses, separate from other businesses through the community, different neighborhood groups and so on. So we have a comprehensive, ongoing approach to engagement, and it's a dialogue that goes on, each month, each quarter. So we are not getting surprises. We're sharing our challenges with them and our approaches. We're getting feedback from them, learning what their expectations are. And if you have an ongoing way of communicating with folks through different means for all these different demographics, then it is fairly simple, as opposed to trying to, engage them once a year or twice a year. That would be very difficult.
Well, then help me understand what advice you would give construction professionals who are in your community about what they need to do to contribute to this growth that you have, and working with city planners to be a part of that. I mean, besides, everybody knows the 20,000 square foot you have in Disney World and what Walt Disney's done in building in an enterprise like that, right? But other construction companies who say they want to be a part of this community that you've built?
For construction companies, what we would tell them, first off, civic engagement is number one. So you start in any relationship, you want to be understood and you want to understand the other parties. Civic engagement has to be where you start. You've got to let them know what your challenges are. You've got to bring various technologies to the process to communicate this to different people who might be busy, who might need to come back and look at a video or check online or check social media to see what you have going and to get regular updates from you. So that would be the number one thing: information management and stakeholder engagement. Know who your customers are, know who might be using your facilities, know who might be traversing your project sites and so on, and communicate that via a wide range of methods, be it social media, the internet, newspapers, television, and so on. But if you're doing that every day as appropriate or every week, then it's, again, not a very heavy lift.
Charles Ramdat, the Director of Smart Cities at the City of Orlando, thank you so much for being with us.
You're most welcome, Becky.
All right. Well, that's someone you should know. Managing the information technology in a city like Orlando is a tall task. Our next guest says she is up for the challenge. She is the Chief Information Officer at the City of Orlando, focusing on implementing edge technology solutions that align technology plans with business requirements. She also has experience with data governance, large-scale project management, resource management, and infrastructure planning. Please join me in welcoming Rosa Aktakavari, Chief Information Officer at the City of Orlando. Rosa, I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Rosa, let's talk about how technology has actually been used to advance public safety, a smarter government. What's your thoughts on all of this?
This is actually a very exciting time for me. So what we're doing, we are looking at our existing investments, and we're trying to look at it through a different lens. How do we take all that information, all the sensor information, and drive intelligence, actionable intelligence? So our focus in public safety is main focus or main target areas are three areas. One is improve efficiency, public safety efficiency, such as response, collaboration between police and fire, as well as other agencies, code enforcement, and neighboring agencies. We're looking at using the data and predictive analysis from all that collected information to do prevention. So how do we prevent certain incidents from happening by getting ahead of it, by partnering with nonprofit organization, by partnering with our vendor community and with our community at large at the greater Orlando area. The other area we're looking at is bringing all that information in and do smart planning. So where do we put our next fire station, our substation? When we do annexation, how's that gonna change our landscape for redistricting? So those areas are very, very important for us. The other area we look at, other areas we look at besides the existing investment, as we implement new systems, we want to see how the data information flows between those systems and not just public safety systems. And we're just using all the sensor information to drive efficiencies throughout our processes.
Let's talk about the smart planning part of that, because that's very important when you're talking about what types of tools when you think about smart planning, because we talk about construction, efficiency. There's so much time wasted in that planning process and getting jobs done completely. How are you finding that this is really making construction more efficient and reducing a lot of waste when you're looking at that?
I think it is very important, again, knowing what information we have collected across our agency, our enterprise. So when we bring all that information in, all those pieces of information is gonna help us be more efficient, smarter. For example, as said, and we also try to get more value out of the work we're doing. For example, as we start looking at transportation planning, what sensors are we putting in? How does that fit in within our public safety? So we look at that. We're looking at events, scheduled events, trends in scheduled events, and how does that help us build our changing our transportation system? Where do we put the stop sign? So that type of information, as well as redistricting for police and fire. Where do we put our fire station? Based on the number of calls, the type of calls, based on the connectivity to those areas, the travel distance, the traffic pattern, all that impacts at the longer term planning.
When we look at all of this, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Continue what you were going to say.
Yeah, and I think what it is also important is not a one-time thing. It's that having that continuous improvement cycle built into our planning make it crucial. So as the landscape changes, as the environment changes, we need to be agile and change with it as well. It just is very important parts and not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
And that's it. It's a journey, right? When you're looking at all this technology. And so when you look at that, the other key element of this is security, because when I think a lot of companies don't realize this, we've got a lot of bad actors out there, and you're connecting a lot of these things to a lot of different systems and infrastructure, and we talk about that. Your infrastructure can, and if the bad actors get in, you can create havoc to an entire city, correct?
That is correct, and that's one of the areas that doesn't only keep me up at night, keep many of us up at night. So the landscape, the bad actors and the cybersecurity landscape is continue to evolve to our disadvantage in one way and to our advantage in another way. So we have having all that sensor, having all the information coming in from environmental, from transportation, now is thriving on our network. So how do we shore our defenses? So looking at cybersecurity, we look at two areas because we want to be very realistic. Our focus is prevention. So we try to stay with the trends of what's happening and we shore our defenses as it relates to that. We try to focus or shift our focus from basically active monitoring to incident response, not incident response, but we're trying to focus into active monitoring. We want to build incident response plan. We want to exercise and do tabletop exercises, but then it starts from the top down. Other areas we do look at is basically awareness. We have a full plan to raise awareness. We have employee training, and that goes beyond just the compliance as it's for public safety training certification, but we do that for citywide annual training and awareness campaigns because we all know people are one of the weak links as it comes to technology. We are building layers and try to separate our environment, and we have strong partnerships. We have sensors. We know what's happening in our area. We have full support of the city executive team from the mayor all the way down throughout the city. We build security by design. Security is not afterthought for anything we do. Security is part of any implementation, execution, and testing of any project environment we put in place. And again, the partnership at the region, we are very active in the Fusion Center for our region. We have very strong partnership with DHS. They come and help us look at our environment and give us directions. The regional team as well as the national team have been very helpful in guiding us to shore our defenses and move to prevention.
One more question, we're running out of time, but just quickly, looking at all this, you've talked about you build the security in this, but we can't build this great connected city anymore without actually physically building some of these things. You've talked about a lot of sensors. We have to do these things before we can have autonomous vehicles or any of these things we're talking about. We still have to build what is all about our great cities, right? Is that what we're talking about? And then we can actually have the information systems that manage it. Is that what we actually have to do to make our cities great and smart?
Yes, definitely. So we have to build the transport for all the information. We have to identify our information and pieces. We have to have the right system that give us the right analytics, that give us the predictive analysis, smart machine learning built into the overall plan, and not forgetting the human element. Just going back to public safety, we know technology can give us a lot, but then also we do have the right people leading those organizations, which the city has been very lucky to bring in that human element to augment that technology. But we are built all the new systems we are putting together. We're doing it from top down. We're looking at connectivity, we're looking at collaboration, data flow, process flow, and trying to look at what is our objectives. And that objectives need to align with the city mission, with the mayor's mission, as well as the department missions. It's not deploying technology for the sake of technology.
Rosa Akhtakhvari, thank you. You are the Chief Information Officer for the City of Orlando. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, well, that's our innovation in tech for today. Appreciate it. Today's word of the day is blockchain. Now, you may have heard of this word in the news, or maybe you haven't. But one thing is for sure, you are probably wondering how it will impact the construction industry. And I will address that here. At its core, blockchain is a growing list of records that are linked and secured using cryptography. First, let me give you a little bit of history. They were once the realm of Silk Road online black market drug deals. That is all starting to change. Cryptocurrencies have gained momentum as of late. Today, digital currencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum are starting to soar. And Market and Markets predicts that cryptocurrency segment is going to grow as much as 540 million this year, in this past year, to 2.9 billion by 2023. The digital currency technology is based on blockchain that moves the currency from one person to another without a third-party intervention at all. So it is never stored in one central repository. So think about this. Records are public, verifiable, and they keep everyone honest. Now, there is no central location for any of these bad actors to tamper with or to corrupt any of the data. An enterprise blockchain framework is even more impressive because it can deliver improved transaction speed, scale, and data. Efforts such as this can bring applications of blockchain technology outside of finance. And this is where opportunities lie for the construction industry. Blockchain opens up a new way to track materials, contracts, and payments in the supply chain. And it can even integrate with BIM. The opportunities are really endless. The bottom line is it will change the way business is conducted. And I can tell you, I have heard this buzzword on every single show floor I have been on so far in the past few months. Blockchain is going to alter the way business is transacted in the very near future. So if you haven't heard the word before, now you have. And I am pretty sure I can bet some good money this will be one of the most talked about words in 2018. Blockchain. That's your word of the day. So as you have seen, Orlando is a city that has been built on a dream, from its early days in citrus to being a smart city now. I'm hoping you have learned something really special today, but there is still so much more to discuss. On the next episode of ConstructTech TV, I will be sitting down with Matt Brofman, Director of Innovation, Rick Howard, Director of Public Works, and Ian Laheef, Energy Project Manager. They will share with me how technology is at play in the inner workings of the city and how it will impact how cities are built in the future. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching ConstructTech TV, where we are talking tech at the job site.